Good evening and welcome. Welcome to my live stream. Here to fight CPS and stop taking our children. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host. And this next hour, I want to try to help you with your concerns, your questions, your comments, anything you have about CPS. This is an interactive live stream broadcasting on YouTube. I'm using a StreamYard application. I'm on from Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. At 10 a.m. in the morning Pacific Standard Time for 1 hour, and then on the weekends at 8 a.m. Pacific Time for an hour. Then in the evenings, I'm on from 7 p.m. Monday through Sunday, all 7 days. That's 14 live streams a week, and I want you to know that. I'm not an attorney. I'm a loving father and a husband. I've raised 6 kids. 3 are older with older families and kids themselves doing very well in life. Apparently, uh, I did not know that the layperson that was reporting that us parents were bad parents was actually a retaliation mode by the in-laws, my wife's mother and father, sister, 3 sisters and a brother. We're calling once a week, for 5 years of false allegations. And then finally, they got the police involved, and the police ordered me to my home. And I did not know about the rules. You should never leave them in your home, and you should never, ever um, uh, speak to them either. So that was a case where it got worse and worse. And then from 2010 to 2005, they ended up taking my children, and that's for a separate story. So I want to welcome Betty Joe from Montana. Hello, Betty Joe. I have not heard from you in some time. And I thank you very much for coming into the live stream. Now, I'm trying something a little bit differently where I don't really talk in depth about my case, and I don't really um, talk about the rules. I've come up with 5 rules. Get an attorney. Do your documentation. Do not talk to social workers or the police. Do not let them take your children. Do not let them enter your home. When you go to uh, urgent care or the emergency room, do not talk to social workers. When you're having a baby at the hospital, do not talk to social workers. And thank you for the emo, Joe, of Crystal. Thank you, Crystal Sandoval, for your heart. I appreciate that. You can do a lot in this room. You can send emojis, hearts, faces, and thumbs up. And hi there, Crystal. You're in there too. Thank you. And send me stars. Also, please follow me. Check the follow button. And if you want to be notified of when I'm on, all you have to do is click the notification button. Now, real quickly, there's some rules in here. First of all, if you're going to, excuse me, I got the wrong one. Please text in a comment or a question about CPS. All I ask you is that you give your first name and your city or county and state. And if you're from another country, and I have right now 21 countries that have called in or texted in, please list your country. Everybody is welcome as a CPS matter, no matter how big or small it is. Also, tell me about your case. Start from the beginning and where you are today. Now, a lot of you I know, there's about 20 to 30 people in here that are regulars, and I really do enjoy you coming back twice a day. You support this podcast, this live stream, and you support the people in the room. That is so good. Another way you can be a guest on live stream. Please email my show producer, Grace at VincentWDavis.com, with the day and time you want to be on my show. All you have to do is say morning, evening, and either Saturday through Monday, just one of those days. And she'll get you set up and tell you what you can't do and can do. Let me see here. Now, another way you can is by calling in. There's my number, 626 698 0990. And that number is to my phone. I use Vonage. You don't have to have Vonage, but my phone application. That's my office number. I talk to you during the show times of 11 of my show times. Now, I also make phone calls for anybody that's interested in retaining Mr. Davis. I talk from 8 in the morning to 10 o'clock, and then again from 1 o'clock, then again from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And I will help you retain Mr. Davis or help you with any legal matters pertaining to getting an attorney. Maybe you want something in real estate or some other aspects. Anyway, I'm on the phone specifically to help you retain Mr. Davis. Now, Betty Jo looks like she's got some updates. Okay, Crystal's next court date is May 12th. Okay, it's about a month away. My brother went to his termination parental rights, and now they're asking him to get housing and a part-time job while he's in Nebraska. He left to go to Nebraska to live with his child, and the judge is happy about that. Well, I am too. I hope that he does get involved. I think the best things are the biological parents. They choose not to place the baby with the mother because she is a psycho. Well, yeah, that's what you termed me early on. For all of your listeners, Betty at one time had acquired the child to take care of the child. It was actually her niece, her brother's girl, and she had gone through the right channels, the right thing. The child was brought back, but then for some known reason, the foster parents wanted them, and then the mother wanted him, and now it looks like the change now is her brother's going to have some time with the child. So that is really good. I'm really glad to hear that, Betty Jo. I'm sorry for the turmoil that you go through, Betty Jo. And Betty Jo, by the way, is a wonderful foster mom. A month ago, she had taken care of a boy that lost his parents on Friday night to a car accident. And so Crystal, you're 6 months in. Well, that's really good. Now, I was talking real quick about my rules. I told you that be careful when you're having a baby and not to talk to social workers. Rule 4 is that you do not you search the internet the correct way. There's a really important placement of words. Remember, it's the city followed by the state, followed by the word CPS. And if you're from outside the country, put your country, then CPS. And then when you get there, you get a lot of things. And if you want to further refine it, then put what you're looking for, like how to file a 388 motion, etc. So that is all important there. Now, Rule 5 is gather all your documents, make copies, and keep them. They're really important, things like birth certificates and grade reports and those kinds of things. Any document, marriage license, things like that. So those are my 5 rules. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them because I want to talk about topics. And I'm not necessarily questions that come from Quora, but Google has a new feature called the latest news about topics. And so what I do is that I go to Google, the search for the latest news. Is something new that Google is doing right now. And then I can talk about those topics. Also, if you call in, we can talk. Also, if you text a message, we can talk about your subject. Or if there's a particular topic you want to talk about, I'll be glad to talk about. Well, let me see if I can find my Google topics. Google topics. They're found in the privacy sandbox and aims to enable interbest advertisement. Okay, overview. Uh, so we have to go to Google News. Where is Google News? Well, here's a story that's pretty interesting. Um, oh boy, they want me to get subscription. I don't want to do subscription. This is sad when you have to. Um, well, looks like that's not going to work. The Detroit News had an article, but you got to be a member. Here's an article. It's called A Second Chance Offered to a Minnesota Mom Who Previously Lost Her Kids to CPS. Hennepin County reached out to expectant mothers at a highly sensitive stage of their pregnancy, offering assistance to those who agreed to work with the Child Welfare Agency. The aim is to oh boy. It seems like lately it's always hard to go through these news things here. I'm glad you're checking in, Crystal. Hello, Margaret. I have a question about the hospital and how they determine a parent and child test positive for drugs. Okay, I just want your knowledge about this. And Melissa's prosecution, I agree with you, Crystal. Margaret came up with a topic. I'm glad you did. I'm having trouble with the latest news. And I'm glad you didn't sign a contract with them, Crystal. It's really, really hard. Um, so Margaret is asking a question. How do they test for drugs in parents and CPS and CPS cases? There is a provision that would permit parental drug testing upon a bare allegation of drug use without any statutory limitations on the type of test, blood, urine, or hair. The manner of the administration of the test or the disclosure of the test, but it is found in the Federal Constitution, Section 3011, Subdivision D. Does not manage confidentially. Let's see what else. Now, CPS has different drug tests: urine tests, hair follicle tests, and blood tests. Each method has its own advantage and disadvantage in terms of accuracy and detection period. Now, the drug tests used for child custody, they commonly use urine and hair follicle and blood tests to assess potential drug use, with urine tests being the most common and least intrusive, while hair follicle tests can detect longer drug use. Now, the social services uses their urine pots on site as their ideal for testing to give immediate result. That's why you don't want to go to their office. You don't want to be subject to something like that. There's nothing that says you have to go to their office. Bad things can happen in the office. You should go to a public place, Starbucks, the library, McDonald's. And they're ideal for testing to give immediate use. Can they test anyone in the house? CPS can randomly order drug tests of anyone they want to. That said, if the terms and conditions of the CPS case either agreed to by you or as a result of a court order provide for testing, they can require it. So you can refuse their drug test. You can say you take your own. If you go to court, the judge, the referee will make a determination whether you allowed to use your own medical insurance for a drug test or use the CPS. The courts will also determine which drug test they have to use. Now, to do a court-ordered drug test may involve various testing methods, including urine, blood, hair, or saliva tests to detect the presence of drug or alcohol. During the assessment, the professional may discuss your substance use patterns, the impact on you, and the likely related to legal usage. They also have something called a mouth swab in CPS. You want to avoid drug use. The most important step in preparing for any drug test is refrain from any substance that may track a result. That means like drugs. That means you got to refrain from drugs there. Yes, they can test the babies at birth and their tube, their umbilical cord. Yes, I do believe that CPS does falsify drug results. I know that they're corrupt, and especially in California, they're very, very, very corrupt. Now, you say the mother tested negative and the baby tested positive for methamphetamines. Well, I don't know much about that particular drug. But a lot of things can cause that to test positive. That doesn't make sense. If the mother test is negative, why would the baby test positive? That certainly is not a good thing to hear. Yeah, I understand you had to hire an investigator. Yep, you got to be careful. They are very, very corrupt. You also want to stay hydrated. Avoid eating or drinking before the test. Be aware of the detection window. So those are 4 steps in doing a swab. Now, the most common test in court is usually the urine test, and the judge will order that. Now, they may also order a nail test for drugs or require hair follicle testing in custody cases. Can you refuse a follicle test for CPS? You have the rights to refuse, but unfortunately, they can use that refusal to cooperate against you and present it to the judge as though you're trying to hide something. Okay? And you can refuse a drug test because you don't trust the CPS person giving the test. You don't trust the procedure used or keeping it sterile or clean or whatever. You can have those fears, and the judge will have to hear what you have to say. Again, you have to be working with a lawyer. If you're trying to do this pro se or use a court-appointed judge, you're going to lose. You're going to lose. Now, if a child fails a drug test, for instance, a student test is positive for drugs, but has not yet progressed to addiction, the school can require counseling and follow-up testing. For students diagnosed with addiction, parents and school administration can refer them to effective drug treatment to begin the recovery process. Now, drugs show up, for instance, alcohol 3 to 5 days, cannabis 7 to 30 days, cocaine 3 to 4 days, codeine 1 to 2 days, heroin 3 to 4 days. So as you can see, you have to be drug-free of any drugs for 30 days. Can they test for marijuana? In situations where a parent or guardian's marijuana use is found to endanger a child, meaning they're smoking in front of the child, or the child is allowed to grab the marijuana, CPS may intervene, leading to investigations, drug tests, and potential legal sections. How far back does CPS articles go? 90 days. They have 90 days and go back far and test. Now, if you refuse a drug test required by the court, refuse a court-ordered drug test can have severe consequences, including loss of your parental rights. Failing a drug test may lead to reduced custody rights, potential limited to supervision visitation. Sobriety can be a basis for modifying custody orders, but proof of rehab is often required. Can CPS court account your medication? For the same reason that your physician may do a pill count and blood and urine screens, CPS wants a pill count. CPS must protect the children. And if a CPS believes you're abusing or misusing drugs, they must investigate to the protection of your safety of your children. Okay, Margaret says, before I go to Margaret, I have to catch up with you guys. She says, and babies that are born positive with drugs are held in the hospital for 2 weeks. My baby was discharged 2 days in normal condition. That was good, Margaret. Um, Welcome, Carrie Rex. I'm glad you are. Now, I know Margaret's from California in the Fresno, Kern County area. I don't know where you are, Carrie Rex. If you could tell me where you are, that would be great. Um, Now, you Margaret says you can, the CPS worker handed me a requisition yesterday. I went to the clinic to test today and it was shut down because the technician wasn't there. That's the problem with using their facilities. The baby was born last August. They hesitate posting the results. It was like pulling a tooth trying to get the results. They posted them 2 weeks ago. Yes, if you miss even the appointment is considered a dirty test. Wow. You don't want to miss any appointments, that's for sure. Um, you're from New York, Carrie Rex. Well, welcome you. And you can state any questions about right now. We're discussing about taking drug tests in CPS cases. I'm trying to get with more topics that we can talk about. And Margaret wanted to talk about drug testing. Did you have any more, Margaret, that you wanted to talk about? Also, Betty Joe, do you have anything you want to talk about? How are things going with foster care? What are you doing in foster care these days? By the way, all foster care is not bad. There are good people like Betty Joe from Montana that's a foster care mother. She's only interested in taking care of the children, not adopting them. And she's one of the few foster care people that I've spoken to that's very professional and does a good job with foster care, and she really cares about the children. Good evening, Livingston. Welcome again. And I hope your day went well from this morning and so forth. Let's try yeah. You want to know about civil lawsuits. Okay. To do a civil lawsuit against a CPS entity, your case must be over. Now, there's two venues. You have your state court civil lawsuit and you have your federal court civil lawsuit. My attorney, Vincent Davis, recommends the federal courts. The federal courts are a lot more consistent and you're only dealing with one entity. States will vary. And so, Vincent Davis has won civil lawsuits both in state and federal courts. I mean, he has a track record and won millions of dollars. So if you're going to file a civil lawsuit, you need to get an attorney that does that. You don't need a criminal attorney thing. You need a civil rights attorney that is background in the area of civil law. Civil law is so important. It's based around your Constitution and civil rights being violated. Let's say a social worker lies on the stand, commits perjury. She can be sued for committing perjury and sued. But it does take money to do a civil lawsuit. Today, a gentleman was asking me from San Bernardino how much Mr. Davis would retain for a civil lawsuit. His price was $15,500 in San Bernardino County. And so that's how much the retainer would cost. So let's say you're going to do a civil lawsuit of $1 or $2 million in San Bernardino County. You could hire Mr. Davis, retain him for $15,500. Now I know to most of you that sounds a lot, but here's the thing is, in civil lawsuits you go for big dollars, not small chump change. So if you get a couple million and it costs you $25,000, then that is good. That's good. There's some attorneys that will do it where they get 20 or 30% of what you get, and they will fight the case. It all depends on the case and how good they are. So hopefully that helps you out, Livingston. Yeah, all of them do. You have a question mark. What is your question mark, Livingston? Margaret, with or without getting the children back, you can file a levels lawsuit. The only difference is if you do not get the kids back, you get less money from the suit. I've never heard of that one. That's good that you're sharing with me, Margaret. It's called a civil, um, a levels lawsuit. But I don't know if I want to risk my children not getting him back. I definitely don't want to get them any more angry that they are, because my social worker, who's a young girl, barely in her early 20s, lied on the stand, but she took revenge and she forced my daughter, who was 12 at the time, to emancipate from the parents, the family, everybody, change her name completely, to seal her birth certificate and get a new birth certificate, a new social security card, and adopted in a foster care family. She encouraged and she told her daughter what to do, because at 12 she didn't know. So she was gone at age 12. I've not seen her since age 12. She's 22 now, and I have 10 broken years of no reaction with my daughter. I love her so much. And it's really hard because I raised her from birth to 12, and suddenly have this rogue entity, what they call themselves. They're going to help out the family. They didn't. Every time I turned my back, every time I fought them, every time I met with the director, all the things, they made it worse and worse. And then I got Vincent Davis. And it took still 3 years with Mr. Davis to get my boys back. So I'm telling you, with a lawsuit, I don't want to do a lawsuit unless my case is over, because I don't want to jeopardize my kids. So that's my comment about that. Now, Corey Rex says, you don't always want to win. We want our kids back and safe. I agree. My comment was not the lawsuit. I could have done the lawsuit, but I couldn't afford the retainer to fight for the lawsuit. I had a solid case to win, but I had hoped that I'd get my daughter back, but it didn't seem to materialize. Even after I got a private apartment for her and my family, my wife, and my other two sons, they could all come there and I'd stay out of the house. But that didn't work. It cost me a lot of money. For 6 months, I rented this place, and no one lived in it. So it was like $20,000 going down the drain. Anyway, so with a civil lawsuit case, it's like that you can go to prison. How can you go to prison with a civil lawsuit? Oh, maybe they can't go to, well, they can be sued for the amount of money. A civil lawsuit involves money. It does not involve criminal prison or jail. I'm talking about a civil lawsuit that you file. I pray Livingston is doing a lot of praying in this room. I appreciate it. Margaret says a civil lawsuit should also consist of criminal charges against these people, not just monetary. Well, that's a different kind of loss. That should be um, a criminal charge. So um, you have to see something that violated criminally. You got to prove it. Now that is hard to do, and you have to get the district attorney to file a criminal charge against a CPS worker. I know it hurts, Livingston. I agree with you. Yep, it should, but it doesn't. I agree with you, Carrie Rex. Okay, um, I think we've talked about filing a civil lawsuit, and we've talked about Margaret about drug testing. What else would someone else like to talk about? I don't know if DAs will go against their county. I think the DAs are crooked, so that may not be the case. That's a wrong number there. So now here's one about CPS investigations. Um, During a CPS investigation, a social worker will interview the child, the parents, and other adults who live in the home. The social worker also speak to any witnesses who may have information about the alleged abuse or neglect. Now, if that interview is going to happen, you need to not talk to them unless you're represented by an attorney. The first thing you do when you get involved in CPS is call an attorney. That is the number one thing. And I don't mean a criminal attorney or a court appointed attorney or a public defender. I mean a real attorney trained in juvenile law, dependency law, and family law who will fight and has a proven track record of fighting CPS. That's who you have to get a hold of. Yes, it costs money. Like in LA County, Mr. Davis can be retained for $5,000 if your case is in LA County. But it goes up depending how far away the case is. He will go to other states and fight. He has cases in Oklahoma, Missouri, Pennsylvania. He goes around the country, but it is very costly because he has per diem he has to cover. You have to understand he has to fly to get there. He needs a car for ground transportation to and from the hotel and the courts. He needs a hotel to live in while he's fighting your case or staying for your case. He needs to have, the airfare and so forth. And the food, he needs to eat too, because he's not home where he can fix his food. So it's very important that you get an attorney. Now, what happens is the social worker will use this information to determine whether or not the child will to determine if the child's at risk or harm. The problem is if it's a bad CPS system, the child protection system, if it's bad and you don't know it, their goal is to take your child right away because they say they're in danger and put them into foster care and start collecting money. They want to call the county. You see, I've talked to over 1,000 people. I've talked to every state in the United States. I've also talked to 4 provinces in Canada, talked to Mexico. I've even talked to Africa, several provinces there. And everywhere I talk to, people have said the number one thing they do is they start to talk early on, and it ends up they use the words against you. You cannot do that. So you don't want them to investigate you without the attorney present. Now, the social worker, if it's a good social worker, will has good faith belief the child has been abused or neglected in violation of the Welfare Institution for Children of 300. She must remove the child from the home and a juvenile dependency case will be opened. That's why you need an attorney trained in dependency law. That's who CPS uses. Now, juvenile dependency is a legal term that refers to the court-supervised care of minors. During juvenile dependency proceedings, the court would determine the child's best interests are and if the parents are reunified with the parents. If the reunification is not possible, the court would terminate the parental rights. That's it in a nutshell. You want to be reunified if the child needs to be taken. The problem is they take the children too soon. They take the children right away. Now, I'd like to catch up with the people talking in the room. You all are participating very well here. Um, yeah, I understand that. The greatest case here, there's criminal charges against O.J. Simpson. He was found not guilty, but then they did civil charges against him, and he was found guilty. He had to pay out of his pocket. He had to pay out of his pocket. That's the difference between criminal charges and civil charges. Now, I know, Margaret, they do place children in foster homes. There are bad foster parents. Betty Joe is a wonderful foster parent. Is when they abuse them. No, they can sue CPS workers if they commit perjury. If they violated any of your constitutional rights or your civil rights, you can sue them. It depends on the DA politically. I agree with you. It's hard to have the DA go criminal charges unless you get the criminal charges made public. I can guarantee that you can make differences. There's a Doge department, new government entity headed by Elon Musk that President Trump created in January. That is investigating right now as we speak social services. The child protection system is a part of social services. They need to be alert. There is a number that you can reach the Doge. There's also a government website on Doge. It's doge.gov, G-O-V. It's https://doge, D-O-G.v. And the phone number, and by the way, someone had called me they're from Tennessee but moved to Michigan. His name is Pat. And he called and I gave him two numbers to the White House. He says they refer you to another number, 202-514-2000. That's at the top level of government. Sometimes I find going to the top's the best way. That's why I talked to the director of the Child Protection System in Orange County, California. So if you call that number, 202-514-2000, you'll be connected with Doge, and they have lots of ways that you can further make your complaint well known to them. So sometimes you have to go all the way to the top to do things. And I agree if you can prove the abuse. See, that's the problem. You got to prove the abuse, Margaret. You got to prove the abuse. Now, I know you're speaking of California, not sure about other states, but I definitely look into it. Yeah, any form of abuse. If a CPS worker places a child in a foster home and they're abused, that's how you can sue a CPS worker. True, if they committed perjury or they violated one of your constitutional rights or your amendment there. Yes, very good point, Kerry Rex. Always record. That's why I say you should meet at a public place. Starbucks, McDonald's, the library. Those are public places. You should also do video besides recording. I agree with you, Kerry. Now, Livingston says, what if the innocent children gets abused? Well, it's terrible what they get abused by, whether it's sexually or physically or whatever the case may be. It's wrong. And you need to call 911 and report it. That starts a chain of events. You can say that your child is being sexually abused in a foster care home. You need to give the location, the name of the home, and all the information you have, and they can send a policeman out to investigate. The problem is is foster care people cover everything. It's really hard to prove. Really hard to prove. Yes, it's sadly children are placed in with anywhere in the world with strangers, and this happens in any country, every state of the U.S. I agree with that on that. So, hi Barkley, thank you very much for your talk this morning. I'm considering on sending the information I have to the local newspapers and media. Good point. You know, the more you make a publicity out of it, that's why I think a group of people should go to Congress and ask to have the floor to discuss how corrupt CPS is in your neighborhood. You need to tell your congressman, your representative. You need to tell the governor, the mayor. You need to tell the police chief. You need to go all over. But you're going to find a lot of those people are corrupt. So you got to be careful when you're doing all this because they will retaliate. They'll try to use anything in your closet against you. So be very, very careful. I encourage you to make publicity, but you got to be careful. Is it going to hurt your case? You have to understand when you start making a ruckus with the news media or those kinds of things, it's going to create might create a problem. So I'm telling you, you got to be careful there. Yeah, I know you live in Montana. You live in Helene, Montana, Barkley. You've told me that. Yeah, Margaret says she didn't know where her babies were for 7 weeks. That's wrong. That is wrong. And at that time, if you knew what you knew now, you probably would have found them sooner. You call 911 and report them missing. You know, I've been learning a lot about 911. 911 is a public record. 911 takes down everything. It isn't influenced by politics or the police or anything else. They're supposed to record anything that a person says that want help. So always start with 911. Don't start with CPS or the police department or anything like that. And also take your notes of your facts right away when the things happen. You need to take your phone out, go to a blank page, use your calendar, and start typing down the date, the time, the weather. Things like where you at and what was going on and everything. Gather all the information first, and then when you speak to 911, write down their name and everything, and they will alert the police if it's a criminal matter. If it's a CPS matter, child, they may alert to CPS. But whatever you do, you need to have witnesses. Don't be alone on this matter. Do not be alone. Now, Margaret says, Barkley, you can send the information to ABC Action 7 News journalist. Name is Nick Garcia. There are a lot of news agencies that love to have stories that are centralized. So, Livingston says it's a violation of our children and our parents. Yes, I know it is. No question. Hey, Megan Ward, welcome to this room. Welcome to the live stream here. Are you representing Bree Olson? No, I'm not representing anybody here. I'm a loving father. My name is Bob Pace. I'm not a lawyer, but I have 41 years of marriage experience. I've raised 6 children. 3 are olders with families. 3 are the youngers that were attacked by CPS. I did have a CPS case. It was a horrible CPS case. So I'm sharing from my experience. I worked for the attorney Vincent W. Davis doing this live stream. And I do this twice a day, 7 days a week for the last 17 months. So I've been on here a long time. I don't know who Bree Olson is. I've known some Brees, but I don't know a Bree Olson. And thank you, Margaret, for that, Barkley was saying. Hey, Cruel, welcome. Cruel is Felicia from Ventura. She has a horrible case where her family members are trying to oust her out of her home. Her mother and her live in the home. Her children were taken from her. She has a lot of retaliation by family members. I hate it. I heard in a short video from my attorney, Davis, that he witnessed at least 2 cases where the temporary parental right parents reunified with their children. I'm working on being that third. Good, Cruel. Glad to hear that. Not giving up. Cruel is from Ventura, California. She's one of my regulars on the show, as well as Margaret does. And of course, Barkley. Oh, it's corrected to ABC 30 News. Well, it depends on where you're at, but news sources love news that are centralized. I've recorded the supervisor for the visitations. Good, good, Barkley. Margaret says, I love recordings and pictures of the abuse that are inflicted on my 5-year-old and a 7-month. So she has some horrible pictures and recordings of abuse on her 7-month-old child, and it's bad. Barkley says, thank you for the update, Margaret. Good, good, good. Everybody's helping one another. I love that. I love how everybody's helping you. They will retaliate. I was followed yesterday, and they were taking pictures of my van while I was parked in the bank parking lot. They will. They'll do a lot of intimidations. And I've had police drones in my backyard. Margaret, I know about that. We have a woman on here from Richmond, Kentucky, Faye Manling, who has drones all the time over her house. And so I know it's not a coincidence. They use that to spy on people. It's so corrupt that the police and the local governments and even the state governments are corrupt. Even our federal government is corrupt. That's why they're weeding out. So many people are squawking because we have someone in there investigating government waste and people that are getting money when they're not alive, and then people get money when they make more money. They're not eligible for food stamps. We have a lot of fraud taking place, a lot of government waste in government. And so Trump is doing that, and a lot of people are squawking about it. If people are abusing the government, they need to be cleaned out of that matter. They need to be cleaned out of that matter. Now, Margaret says a friend of hers that's a foster parent heard from another CPS worker, if they go by my home every single day. Yeah, they do. They do intimidation. They really are bad because you're trying to make ways to make them look bad, and they are bad. There are pockets of rogue CPS entities that need to be stopped, what they're doing. And I admire all you people out here being so upfront about that. And yes, it's terrible to hear. Margaret says, my grounds people found drugs in my backyard. Sure, they're going to try to frame you. They're going to put drugs in your backyard. They are corrupt. They are corrupt. I was falsely accused in a criminal court, which was dismissed last week. Thank God CPS written all over that case. Well, also you used Vincent W. Davis. He helped you get out of the criminal charge. And that is good news. I agree with you, Bartley. I agree with you. Yeah, Livingston says he's had strange acts about his case too. I know all of you are on here, and it's a public forum, and I really feel for you there. But the truth is the truth, and we should not refrain or be scared. That's why we live in the United States. Yes, that criminal case has a great impact on CPS case outcome. I've changed, and I'm always vigilant and careful. Good for you, Livingston. Margaret, I was told that anyone that comes up against the county I live in are pretty much harassed and retaliated against. So, yes, we must be vigilant with ears and eyes open. I agree with you, Margaret. I was parked inside my car, and a man parked in front of me. Instead of stopping, he was accelerating and pushing me back. Oh, my goodness gracious. You need to write him. I have been rear-ended about 4 times. Well, you need to write down the cars that do that. You need to call 911. And so it's recorded. If you call the police, a lot of times they can bury the truth. Make sure you call 911. Yes, when a case does proceed, it does get uglier. I agree with you. Every time I spot a vehicle following me, I take pictures of the license plate and a video if I can. I report it to my attorney. That's good. Police have followed me without even me doing anything, have put their horrible light in my face when I've been just driving back home from church. You know, Livingston and Margaret do have an attorney. His name is Vincent W. Davis, and you should look into that. I have pretty close to the end of my show. I'm going to take a moment to tell a couple things. I have talked about hiring an attorney, how important it is. You need to get quotes from 3 attorneys if you have not gotten an attorney. And one of them can be Vincent Davis. You can speak to him for free for 15 minutes if you call into my show or you're a guest on my show. He'll give you a Zoom conference. Or if you want 30 minutes, he'll do it for $60, which is cheap. His hourly rate is $500 an hour. So for 30 minutes, he'll talk to you for $60. It's the bottom of my screen. It's a ticket that's running there. So that's really important. So when you get the 2 other attorneys, you want to ask them 2 very important questions. Question 1, are you a licensed professional juvenile law, family law, dependency attorney, and have fought CPS and won cases against them? If the answer is yes, ask the second question. When the CP case is over, have you sued CPS and won money from CPS? If the answer is yes, you got a candidate to further talk to. You need to see their references. Ask for 3 references. Call up the references. Then engage a meeting, not only with the 2, but also with Vincent Davis. And you need to see if the chemistry is right. Any further questions? That's the attorney you should retain. So that's really important to remember that. It's really, really important there. Now, Livingston says at Whole Foods, a strange man started taking pictures of my car and plates too. Oh boy, when I go to walk, I'm too careful when crossing, praying I don't get a hit and run over. As soon as I get out the door, I'm in a fight or flight mode. Take pictures, Livingston. I agree with Margaret. I will 2 days ago. Police passed me 4 times. It's too suspicious. All right. I sleep with one eye open and one eye literally closed. I don't know how hopeless I would be, but I'm glad you keep your faith and you have Vincent Davis. As soon as I get something strange, I get to go to alert. Never before CPS came into our lives. How can this be happening in 2025? It's terrible. I agree, Livingston. Our lives will forever change, but as long as we stay close to our Savior, we are protected. All right. I got to end my show. It's now 8 o'clock, and my live stream is over. I want to thank all of you for participating tonight. I want to start off by thanking Betty Jo from Montana. I think she was the first one in here tonight. And I want to thank Betty Jo from Montana. I'm glad for the update. Crystal, I want to thank you very much so for the update in your court date, May 12th. And then Margaret, you've been with me this morning, night, twice a day. Thank you for being here, Margaret, and God bless you. And I know your time's coming up where you get to fight more with Vincent Davis. And Carrie Resnick from New York, I'm glad to meet you. And I didn't hear much about your case, but I'd love to hear more, Carrie. And thank you for participating in the room. And also Cruel from Ventura, thank you for coming to the room. And I love the good evening. And Barkley, thank you for coming back. I appreciate that. And I hope I help you guys out with encouragement because you need to keep fighting for your kids. Do not give up. Your kids are very valuable to you, and you should not give up on your kids. They're the most precious things, and family is important. Nobody better than a mom or dad, the biological mom and dad, can raise a child. Studies have proven over and over again the best parents are the biological parents. So I will see you all tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for my live stream. I want to thank you all for everything you do. And remember, I'm praying for you and I care about you. And God bless.